People think being beautiful is a gift. They think it makes life easier. They think it protects you from pain. I'm a very beautiful girl, and this is the part no one ever wants to hear. From a very young age, people stopped seeing me. They saw my face first, my body, my appearance, and then they made a decision about who I was before I ever spoke. I remember walking into rooms and feeling eyes on me, not curiosity, not kindness, expectation. Men looked at me like I owed them something. Women looked at me like I was competing with them, and almost no one looked at me like a human being with a story. At first, I thought it was normal. I thought, this is just how the world works. I even thought I should be grateful. Everyone kept telling me, you're so lucky. You have no idea how easy you have it. But no one ever asked how it felt. No one ever asked what it's like to never be invisible, to never relax, to always be watched. I learned very quickly that my beauty spoke louder than my voice. I could say something smart, thoughtful, important, and people would still interrupt me, smile at me, flirt with me, as if my words were just decoration. Teachers underestimated me, colleagues doubted me, strangers assumed I was shallow, and men felt free to cross lines. They approached me everywhere, on the street, in elevators, in coffee shops, at work. Some smiled, some followed, some didn't take no seriously. They commented on my body like it was public property. They asked personal questions like they had a right to my life. They stood too close. And when I pulled away, when I said I wasn't interested, they were offended, as if my beauty was a promise, as if I had lied to them. People don't understand how tiring it is to constantly protect yourself, to always be alert, to wonder if someone is being kind or just waiting for an opportunity. I couldn't be quiet without being called arrogant. I couldn't be friendly without being misunderstood. Every smile was read as an invitation. I wasn't allowed to simply exist. And when I tried to talk about it, people laughed. Oh, come on, they said. Try being ugly for a day. It must be so hard being beautiful. So I stopped explaining. I smiled. I stayed polite. I played the role they gave me. Because complaining about beauty makes you sound ungrateful. And I didn't want to be that girl. But inside, I felt invisible. I wanted people to ask about my thoughts, my skills, my work, my fears. Instead, they talked about my face. And slowly, I began to hide. I dressed differently. I avoided attention. I learned how to shrink myself. Because when people only see your beauty, they forget you have a soul. And that's when I realized something important. Beauty doesn't always protect you. Sometimes, it traps you. There's a moment when attention stops feeling harmless. It doesn't happen all at once. It creeps in slowly. At first, it's just looks, then comments, then questions. And one day you realize, people aren't just looking anymore. They're watching. I started noticing the same faces, the same men, in places where coincidence didn't make sense. A man who followed me for 3 blocks, telling me I should smile more. Another who waited outside my gym, as if my schedule belonged to him. I learned how to change my routes, how to pretend I was on the phone, how to walk faster without running. That's the part no one talks about. Beauty teaches you survival skills. I stopped wearing headphones outside, not because I didn't love music, but because I needed to hear footsteps behind me. I kept my keys between my fingers at night, not for drama, for safety. And still, people told me I was overreacting. He's just complimenting you. He's probably harmless. You should take it as a compliment. But fear doesn't come from one man. It comes from patterns, from realizing that too many people feel entitled to you, to your time, to your attention, to your body. I remember one evening very clearly. I was standing in line at a cafe, and a man started talking to me. At first, it was casual, too casual. Then he commented on my legs, on my lips, on what he imagined I was like in private. I told him to stop, calmly, clearly. He laughed. And in that laugh, I understood something. My discomfort meant nothing to him. I left without my coffee, and as I walked away, my hands were shaking. People think fear looks dramatic, screaming, running. But most of the time, fear is quiet. It sits in your chest. It tightens your shoulders. It makes you plan exits in every room. I started saying no less. Not because I wanted to say yes, but because saying no felt dangerous. I learned how to soften my voice, how to smile while rejecting, how to protect male egos at the cost of my comfort. Because when you're beautiful, your boundaries are seen as arrogance. Your fear is seen as exaggeration. Your pain is seen as privilege. And slowly, something inside me hardened. I stopped trusting compliments. I stopped believing kindness was real. I questioned every intention. I wondered if anyone would still care if my face changed, if my body aged, if the beauty disappeared. Would they still listen to me? Or would I finally become invisible and free? That question haunted me. And then one day, I was invited to speak. On a stage, under bright lights. I was nervous, not because of the audience, but because I was about to say the thing beautiful girls aren't supposed to say out loud. When I walked onto that stage, the lights were blinding. I could feel the audience before I could see them. That familiar weight, that familiar curiosity. I knew what many of them were thinking. She's beautiful. What could she possibly complain about? I stood there holding the microphone, and for a moment, I almost smiled and stayed silent. That's what beautiful girls are expected to do. Be pleasant. Be grateful. Be quiet. But something inside me was tired. I looked out into the crowd, and then I saw him, Steve Harvey. He was smiling at first, the kind of smile people wear when they expect something light, something funny, something easy. And I realized something important. This wasn't just my moment. This was my chance. So I spoke. I told them that beauty doesn't make you safe. It makes you visible. I told them that being desired all the time doesn't feel like admiration. It feels like pressure. I said that when people only see your appearance, they stop asking who you are. And then I said the sentence that changed the room. I am tired of being looked at and never being listened to. The laughter stopped. The whispers faded. The room went quiet. I saw Steve Harvey's expression change, not shock, recognition. He leaned forward in his chair. His smile disappeared. For the first time, I felt like someone powerful was actually hearing me. I talked about how men follow me, how they ignore my no, how they get angry when I set boundaries. I talked about how exhausting it is to always calculate your safety. And I said something else, something even harder. I don't know if people would still care about my thoughts if I didn't look like this. Silence. Not uncomfortable silence. Heavy silence. The kind where everyone in the room is rethinking something they believed. Steve nodded slowly, not as a host, as a man. And in that moment, I didn't feel beautiful. I felt human. For the first time in my life, my face wasn't the focus. My truth was. I noticed it in his eyes first. Steve Harvey wasn't performing anymore. He wasn't hosting a show. He wasn't entertaining an audience. He was listening. He took a breath before speaking, and when he did, his voice was slower, heavier. "I need to say something," he said, "and I hope you hear this." The room stayed silent. He admitted that for most of his life, he never questioned attention, never questioned admiration. He said, "As a man, I never had to think about how desire can feel like danger." And then he looked straight at me. "I'm sorry," he said, "not just for me, for every time a man didn't listen." That word hit me harder than applause ever could. Sorry, not defensiveness, not jokes, not excuses, acknowledgement. He said he regretted the times he may have contributed to a culture where women are valued more for how they look than for who they are. And in that moment, I felt something shift inside me. Not validation, relief. Because when someone like him says it out loud, it stops being just your problem. It becomes real. He talked about how society teaches women to see beauty as currency, but never teaches men how to respect it. He said, "We celebrate beauty, but we don't protect the people inside it." I saw people in the audience nodding, some uncomfortable, some thoughtful, and I realized something else. This wasn't just my story, it was shared. I continued speaking, but my voice was steadier now. I said that beauty can open doors, yes, but it can also lock you into expectations you never agreed to. That people assume your life is easier, while you're fighting battles no one sees. I said that I didn't want special treatment. I wanted equal humanity, to be allowed to say no without punishment, to be respected without conditions. Steve leaned back in his chair, quiet, and for the first time, I saw regret on his face. Not guilt, awareness, and that mattered. After the show ended, after the applause faded, after the lights dimmed, something stayed with me. Not the cameras, not the attention, not even the words. It was the quiet. For the first time, I wasn't being looked at. People weren't evaluating my face, my body, my clothes. They were thinking. I could see it in the way they avoided eye contact at first, then looked back, differently. Not desire, reflection. Backstage, a woman came up to me. She didn't comment on my appearance. She said, "I thought I was alone." Another said, "I never had the words for it." And I realized something that night. Silence protects the problem. For years, I stayed quiet because I didn't want to sound ungrateful. Because I was afraid people would dismiss my pain just because I looked a certain way. But pain doesn't disappear just because it doesn't fit the stereotype. Beauty didn't save me from fear. It didn't save me from being misunderstood. It didn't save me from being reduced. If anything, it made people forget to ask whether I was okay. On my way home, I looked at my reflection in the car window. The same face everyone talks about. And for the first time, I didn't feel disconnected from it. I realized something important. My beauty isn't the problem. The problem is what people feel entitled to do with it. The problem is a world that teaches men to take and women to endure. A world that tells beautiful girls to smile through discomfort and call it privilege. I don't hate how I look. I never did. I hate how often my appearance was used to silence my experience. And now, I refuse to be silent. Because beauty without respect is not a gift. It's a burden. I'm still beautiful. That hasn't changed. People still look at me when I enter a room. Strangers still notice. Attention still follows. But something inside me is different now. I no longer apologize for wanting to be seen as more. I no longer soften my truth to protect someone else's comfort, because I understand something now. Beauty is not consent. It is not an invitation. It is not a personality. It doesn't mean I owe anyone my time, my smile, my patience. It doesn't cancel my fear. It doesn't erase my boundaries. It doesn't replace my mind. I am more than what you see in the first 5 seconds. I am my discipline, my work, my intelligence, my exhaustion, my courage. And yes, I am also my beauty. But it is only one part of me. When Steve Harvey looked at me that day, I didn't see judgment. I didn't see desire. I saw regret and understanding. And that meant more to me than any compliment ever could. Because respect lasts longer than attraction, and being heard is more powerful than being admired. So if you're listening to this, and you've ever felt reduced to one part of yourself, your face, your body, your label, know this: you are allowed to take up space as a whole person. And if you're someone who looks, really looks, look deeper. Ask questions. Listen longer. Respect boundaries. Because behind every beautiful face is a human being hoping to be seen, not admired. Seen.